If you know me, then you know that I listen to a lot of podcasts. But in this video, I'm not here to just preach to you that you have to listen to podcasts and forget about everything else that you're listening to. All I'm going to do in this video is give you the benefits of listening to podcasts, the benefits that I've experienced, and also the science-based benefits. And all of this is just for you to give it a try, just to try it out. If you're someone who doesn't listen to podcasts at all, or you listen to them incredibly rarely, then I think this video is something that you should just listen to the benefits, listen to my experiences of podcasts, and as I say, just give them a try. And in the end, if you prefer listening to music or whatever else you like listening to, then that's absolutely fine. In fact, I think in some scenarios, and this is what I do, listening to music is actually more beneficial, such as working out. It's almost like a drug sometimes, music. It can really push you to the next level. But for me, podcasts have really been an amazing tool, and I mostly listen to self-improvement podcasts, and it's actually where I get most of my self-improvement ideas from. Most of the inspiration for these videos and most of the inspiration for my newsletter come from what I've learned in podcasts and books. And so that's why I wanted to make a video about it, because it's such a big part of my day, listening to a podcast. And usually listen to about a podcast a day, probably about 5 a week. And because this is more deeper thinking podcast, then obviously this video will be more focused on the benefits of these sorts of podcasts. Podcasts such as Modern Wisdom, Joe Rogan Experience, Human Lab, etc. Obviously, I just made a distinction between listening to podcasts and listening to music. I think both are highly beneficial. And I'm just going to quickly give you my own distinction of when I use either one. When I'm training football, I usually listen to a podcast, but a bit more of a relaxed podcast. Maybe it's a podcast about football news. Maybe it is a podcast that is to do with self-improvements, but it's not as such a deep thinking topic, if that makes sense. Driving in the car, especially on a long journey, I'll put on a very, very good podcast, one that I've probably saved and looked forward to listening to. If I'm eating a meal and I just want to listen to a podcast, or I'm just relaxing for a bit, maybe just chilling in the evening, and I want to listen to a podcast on the side, and then that's also where I'll put on a deeper one. And then stuff like working out and sometimes studying, sometimes not, I'll listen to music, and sometimes that's can just maybe push you to the next level, or sometimes it's just nice music to listen to in the background when studying. And that's how I kind of spread my podcast and music across. And I'm not saying that should be the same for you. You might be completely different in the way you do it, but for me, that's what I like to do. Anyway, into the benefits of podcasts. First of all, you are learning from the best minds in the world for absolutely free. By listening to these podcasts, you get an insight into the greatest thinkers we have right now, people such as Jordan Peterson. This can be looked up in a more individual sector of podcasts. So let's say you're into business, then you can go on to Diary of a CEO and listen to Stephen Bartlett. Hundreds and hundreds of times you can listen to this man and his wisdom, and you can also listen to people he knows and their wisdom from business as well. And I have to clear up, Stephen Bartlett's podcast isn't only about business, but you get the point I'm trying to say. If you want to listen to a podcast about football management, then you can listen to a podcast where the guest is a Premier League football manager. I mean, how can you get any better guest than that? There's a podcast for every passion. So, you know, if you're really into something, really into improving in something, maybe it's your main goal in life to do whatever that goal is, and there's people that are making podcasts about that specific topic that you haven't listened to yet, then by listening to them and getting their insights is only going to level up your game. Second of all, a bit more of a scientific based benefit is that it improves your listening skills. Recent research in Makassar, I don't know if I've said that right, State University in Indonesia has found that podcasts do actually have a direct correlation to improving your listening skills. Before I go through this, there's a whole research document about this, so if you're interested in reading into it further, I'm going to link it into the description below. First of all, I'm going to quote from the research that it's thought about 40% of our daily communication is spent on listening, 35% on speaking, 16% on reading, and only 9% on writing. That shows out the 4 main communicative methods that listening is the most important. And if you have read the book How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, if you haven't, by the way, I highly recommend reading it, then you obviously know that listening is one of the most important skills. So how's this research done? Well, they got a class of students in the Indonesian university, and what they did is they tested them on pre-testing before all the podcast listening and then after. And the podcasts were used as part of their teaching, so they were listening to them all the time as part of their teaching. Before the podcast teaching style was implemented, the mean average results on the listening test were 52%. Then after all the listening of the podcasts, the mean average of the same students taking the same test was 64%. So you can see how there's been a direct correlation between listening to podcasts and the increase in their listening skills. I was going to say, if you want to go into business, then the networking skill is highly important, but I actually believe the networking skill is fundamental to anywhere where you want to go, especially with social media. Networking is vital, really, and having that listening skill is only going to make your networking skills better. As the original Stoic Zeno said, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, that we should listen twice as much as we speak. And funny enough, I am now making YouTube videos where all I do is speak at a camera. So, you know, obviously I'm the person to listen to on that quote. The third benefit is that you will become a deeper thinker. Over time, if you listen to more and more podcasts, you'll hear so many different ideas come up, and a lot of the time the same ideas will be repeated, which means over time, and especially as you're interested in these ideas will become part of your long-term memory. So a lot of the ideas that I've spoken about in my videos are generally from ideas I've heard time and time again on podcasts, and now they're kind of just an embedded part of my brain. This means whenever you're in a situation where discipline is needed, or something's a bit more difficult, or something's made you annoyed, something that you've heard from a self-improvement podcast will come up in your head and you'll go, oh yeah, that's what I need to do. And usually that is setting you up to do the best case scenario, the thing that's going to be most beneficial for you. But when it comes to being a deeper thinker, I wouldn't just really try and study and learn everything they say in these podcasts. As Tim Ferriss says, the good shit sticks. So if you hear something that appeals to you, it will almost naturally stay with you. The last benefit is that it broadens your opinions. Similar to the past idea that the more and more you listen to podcasts, the more and more ideas you hear. However, as you may have gathered, that the more and more ideas you hear, some of these ideas contradict each other. This means over time you start to develop your own opinions between 2 ideas that are different. And these 2 points kind of go hand in hand. Part of being a deeper thinker is also having your own original opinions from your own original perceptions of what you've heard. And podcast is only going to help you do that. As I said earlier, the reason I wanted to make this video is because I really enjoy listening to podcasts. My favourite being Modern Wisdom, however I listen to multiple. And in the future, hopefully in the very near future, that I will have my own podcast, and so that could be something you guys can look out for. My newsletter came out on Tuesday. The link of that will be in the description. Obviously, when you sign up straight away, you'll get the 2 ebooks, Acquire Languages and The Discomfort and the Art of Discipline. So I highly appreciate it if you can subscribe there, and also subscribe here, support the channel here, like the video if you enjoyed it, and share the channel around with people who you think might be interested. Thank you all for watching the video, and I'll see you next week.